Hi, lovelies. Welcome to Love Yourself Truly, the podcast. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Jess. Welcome back.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here yet again.
For a new week,
New
new
week.
content.
Yep. I was just going to say new topic, new content, and you stole the word right out of my mouth.
Beat you to the punch.
Yeah, you did. I totally see little Jackie Skellington creeping out over there, and it's making me very happy.
He decided to make an appearance, a guest appearance today.
I like it a lot. We we decorated for Halloween, so I'm enjoying the Halloween vibes.
What to say Halloween vibes, but I mean, yes, but
It's Halloween.
he's the only Halloween thing in our house as of right now.
He's literally the pumpkin king.
He is. He's keeping an eye on Alana, making sure she doesn't get into trouble throughout the day.
Stays in check, keeps her in line.
Exactly.
Oh my God, I would love to see that thing like pop up to life and be like, Alana, stop your barking.
She would like literally poop her pants.
I can't even imagine. I think I would too. I'd be like, what just happened?
She's a little scaredy cat, so
Yeah. I mean, that would be like for good reason. That's something really scary.
very true.
That's like what all horror movies are made out of.
Toy Story.
So, yeah, well, oh yeah, okay, Toy Story. But I was thinking more along the lines of like Chucky.
I saw a video on Instagram a while ago of a little kid dressed as Chucky running down the street. And I was like, I'm not scared of the movie Chucky, but if I saw that, I would probably be like, what the hell? That's
That
creepy.
would literally terrify me. I am so scared of Chucky.
It was like just a little kid because it was like the right height, right? The kid was the right height. And then he had like the wig on and then the whole outfit and just like cruising down the street.
Oh my God, that's horrifying.
It's a funny
Chucky
video.
was like the first horror movie that I watched when I was far too young, and I'm forever traumatized by it.
Yeah, my mom made me watch Silence of the Lambs with her when I was 5 because she was too scared to watch it by herself. Talk about some trauma.
Yeah, for reals. That's a good one. That's a great movie though. I really do like it.
I think I was scared of lotion for like the longest time. I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder. Especially at 5. That is
I
very
was
young.
really little. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. And it was your mom too. I was like, I was at like a sleepover and all of us girls just wanted to be like, ooh, we're watching something bad. And Chucky was what was on TV. So yeah. Then it proceeded to we thought there was someone standing outside the house. It proceeded just to get worse. So yeah, it was quite the sleepover.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, you remember those days and like what, you're like 7, 8 years old, sleepovers with the girls on like someone's birthday, you know?
Yeah. Funny story. Alyssa and I were just talking about this the other day, but when we lived together, I had decorated for Halloween and I went to the dollar store because it was like we had just moved out into our first apartment together. And I went to the Dollar Tree and just like stocked up on a bunch of Halloween stuff. And they had like those like you tape them to like the windows and the doors and stuff like that. And so I got like a zombie person that was like the normal size of a person. And I put it like on our sliding glass door, but I didn't tell her.
Oh
so when she came home, she like looked and saw this like silhouette in our back like screen door and it scared the living crap out of her. I felt so bad.
Yeah.
But looking
oh my
back,
God.
it's kind of funny.
That's amazing.
But then also like I didn't know that she like genuinely had a fear of like somebody like looking in windows and stuff in the dark, so like I probably traumatized her too without knowing. Like I didn't intentionally do it, like I was just decorating for Halloween, but I literally scared the living crap out of her. So we were talking about that the other day. It was pretty funny.
Poor girl. You probably did traumatize her a little bit more. She was like halfway scared and now she's like full-blown scared.
No, I feel bad.
It's okay. Now it's a funny story you can both laugh about.
Story. I mean, I don't know if she'll ever let me live it down, but that's okay.
Remember when you almost gave me a heart attack?
I probably should have told her or like taken a picture of it and sent it to her to give her a heads up, but I don't think I even thought about it. Like I just was so excited about Halloween. I was like, "Ooh, this is scary."
Yeah, I don't think I would have thought of that either. I would have been
I think she like came home from the bars and stuff like that. So she was probably drunk too, which didn't help, But anyways.
That's too funny.
Fun little story for you.
I love it. Do you have a gratitude of the week?
I do.
Ooh.
My gratitude of the week is just time spent with hubby this last weekend.
Mhm.
We had a really good time. We went to the beach in the morning and drank coffee and sat together on the beach and just talked and stuff like that. It was really nice. And then he took me on a date night to one of my favorite restaurants.
Aw.
And then randomly after we had dinner, we like walked over to World Market and just like walked around and did some like shopping in there together. And it was just like really fun because World Market has like all of like the trinkets and stuff like that, like
Mhm.
just random stuff. So just walking in there and like spending time with each other, and like it sounds silly, but it was really fun. And then we ended our weekend with a Harley ride to down
Nice.
PCH down to like grab lunch in Costa Mesa and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Just
Yeah.
grateful because we haven't done that in a long time. So it was just nice to spend time together and do things that we enjoyed. So that's my gratitude of
Yay.
the week.
I love that. Honestly, those are like the best weekends. Dan and I kind of had a similar weekend. I was like bumming hard and he was lifting me up basically. But yeah, he took me out to dinner to one of my favorite restaurants too.
Yeah, I
It,
think we were way overdue for a date. Like I can't even remember the last time we went on a date. So it was just kind of nice to like get dressed up and go to dinner. And it
mhm,
was like really hot. So it was like I got to wear a dress and
mhm.
sneakers and just do my
Feel
hair,
cute.
makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it
That's
was
always like
nice.
that's such a fun thing. I love getting ready and like getting all dolled up and stuff too. I don't
I
know.
know, like it's funny because I haven't done my makeup in so long that I felt like I forgot how to do my makeup. So like I was getting a little bit frustrated at first because it was just like not like my eyeliner. I've been so good with eyeliner lately. Like I'm not to toot my own horn,
Not to toot
horn.
your own horror. I think I like that better.
Oh yeah, my face is so red.
I love it.
Not to toot my own horn, but I've gotten really good with like the whole like the cat eye eyeliner. And
You
for
are
some
really good at
reason,
that.
I just could not get it down this last time, but it worked out. I got it and I just chilled out. And then yeah, we just had a really good time. So it was a really nice weekend.
Oh, yay. I love that. That's so fun.
Yeah. What
Yay.
about you?
Um, Mine is more like, well, we've been kind of having monsoons, so we haven't really been able to go out so much on the weekends. So we've been staying inside more and just kind of like hanging out here at house. When I say here at my house, that's what I mean. And so I've been doing a lot more. I mean, I always cook dinners, but like I've been exploring more with cooking and like trying new recipes and trying new things. And then baking more too. So like I made brownies the other weekend. They turned out real good, by the way. Tooting my own whore.
Thank you for doing the same thing I did.
You're welcome. Um, but yeah, so it's just been really fun, like tapping into that. I guess that's a creative side of me that I didn't really recognize until just now. But yeah, I'm just really enjoying cooking. My favorite part that I'm noticing is that like when someone takes the first bite and they just get that look that they're just like, oh yeah, that's so good. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like I'm like searching for that face when like Dan takes his first bite and stuff. So I don't know, it's just like makes me feel good. It makes me feel productive. I feel like yeah, some creative juices flowing and yeah, just having some fun with it. So
Nice.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah, that's mine.
Very good.
Yeah. Plus date weekend to stack on top of yours. It
Yeah.
was like surprisingly we didn't like do a lot, but it was just so we just had I feel like we just genuinely had so much fun. Like yeah, just
Yeah.
like laughing together and being silly. Like we were supposed to go to a high school football game, but we just lost track of time and didn't end up going. But we were at this distillery and then walked to dinner and we had brought like a little flask to for the game. So like we're like walking down this like back street, taking little sips of the flask while we're walking to dinner. Like it was just so random and funny. And it just felt like just like little teenagers on their like first date, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. Shout out to the boys making us
Yeah.
feel loved.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that dinner and now I'm like, that was a bomb dinner.
Where'd you guys go?
Salitas.
Solitas? Oh, I knew
Mhm. Yes,
it.
we did. I got my little Vampiro tacos. Oh,
Nice. They're
so
so
full.
good.
Oh, we were so full though. Like we left, we were just like zombies. And so that's why we're like, let's just walk it off. Like we'll walk to World Market because he wanted to look for like specialty beers and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then he ended up buying me like a moonstone candle that
Oh,
has like
nice.
the crystals in it.
Oh, I love that.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. So yeah, we just ended up walking over there to try to walk off our food because we were so full, but it was so worth it. It was so good.
Oh, hell yeah. I love that. I
I
know.
was excited to get churros too for dessert, but we were just too stuffed, so we didn't end up getting churros. But
Bummer. That just means you
yeah,
have to go back again.
I know. And trust me, I will not complain if I have to go back there. It's one of my favorite restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so good.
So
Man,
good.
you're making me like salivate a
Not an
little.
ad, but if you
Yeah,
guys
not an ad for
want a
Solitas,
good
but
Mexican place, go to
and
Solitas.
are they only in SoCal? I know there's what
I
the
think
one in
so, yes.
Huntington
So they just
and
opened
then
up a location
in Long
in
Beach.
Anaheim,
Oh, in Anaheim
Long
too.
Beach,
Hmm.
Huntington, and then there's one more. I just cannot remember where the location is.
Okay,
Brea, maybe. It might be Brea.
cool.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah. Well,
anywho.
speaking sort of our men and whatnot, it kind of transitions us into our topic,
Yeah.
which is um are women versus men communication styles, basically. Differences, how we communicate differently than our men, any challenges learning from that.
Yeah,
What
specifically to relationships.
yeah. This is specifically for relationships, communication styles, and all that good stuff. So yeah. Do you want
Yeah.
to kick us off and tell us what the different communication styles are?
Yeah, I'll just jump into the main communication styles in relationships. There's four of them. And then I got this information from an article called Understanding Your Partner's Communication Style is Key to Strengthening Your Relationship. Here's where to start by Lauren Dana on wellandgood.com. So the first communication style is assertive. This is the ideal communication style. This can help individuals effectively express their needs, identify their feelings, and take responsibility without placing blame on others. People who have this communication style can advocate for themselves clearly, calmly, and directly. And according to therapists, like this is the ideal communication style. The next one is aggressive. So those that have this communication style can come across as abrasive, demanding, explosive, threatening, and intimidating. And these individuals tend to get defensive when confronted. I'm sure we all know somebody who may have had, or we've come across in the past, or we know somebody who has a very aggressive communication style.
Yeah.
The third one is passive. So those that have this communication style do not typically communicate their sentiments or wants, allowing others to do so instead. So this can lead to internal conflict and frustration from not being heard. And lastly is passive aggressive. So these individuals don't directly share their needs or feelings. They may use the silent treatment to lash out to explain how they feel. So that's just some example of how they may be passive aggressive is, even, yeah, like they just giving the silent treatment and just expecting your partner to kind of know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Can't
those are
read
the four.
minds.
Exactly. Those are the four communication styles within relationships. So
Okay, cool. And then we did a test off of, it was on marriage.com, right? That you sent us? Yeah.
yeah, it was a
Which,
quiz.
yeah, it was like a quiz that kind of went over, or that we took to figure out our communication styles. We had our honeys do the same. So we're not just throwing these labels on ourselves. We actually took a little quiz.
We did.
Yes. I'm gonna kind of go into just like our communication styles, how mine's different than his, and then go from there. Just kind of what I've learned being in this relationship and yada yada yada. I was actually surprised by my result, but then the more I kind of sat and thought about it, I was like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. I did get assertive, and I was actually over the weekend, speaking of our little date nights and whatnot, I brought this up to Dan and I was like, I really feel like I didn't realize I was assertive until I like sat down with all this. And then I think it's just like my delivery that was incorrect in the past. So yeah, like sitting back and looking back on my life, I do kind of feel like I have been an assertive communicator. I'm okay speaking my mind and what I want and things like that. But yeah, my delivery was just not great. As far as kind of ranged or it stemmed back to like when I was younger and kind of what I was learned or taught, or yeah, like your environment, your
Yeah.
learning environment. Yeah. So my father kind of had a more superior, I'm better than others attitude. And I felt like I wanted to be just like him. So I picked up his attitude. And then when I say delivery, I would more tend to like talk down to others versus like I was assertive, but just like doing it in a demeaning way versus a like calm and collected way. And I mean, yeah, I wasn't like angry. I wasn't like yelling or anything like that. It was just like ugh, you stupid, Like I was like, I felt like I was a little bit smarter than other people. Um, when I got older, this is like more like into college and as an adult and everything. Obviously people aren't reacting well to this delivery. And I did become more passive in my communication because I wasn't quite sure that balance. Kind of just went along with whatever other people wanted to do, just kind of became the chill friend that went along with everything. Um, I would definitely avoid conflict, where before I was not scared of conflict, things like that. In romantic relationships, though, I feel like I would get a little angry and like kind of like I'm putting this in quotes for those of you not watching on our YouTube, but just like blow ups where it was just like, and again, it was just I just didn't know how to communicate my feelings and how I was hurting and all that kind of stuff. Um, Now I'm learning that balance and unlearning 30 years of thinking, a certain way, that I'm either superior or that I don't care. So finding that middle ground. Relationships now, like current one I'm in, obviously. I do speak up when something's bothering me in a more conversational way. And I'm just like, oh hey, that wasn't cool, like, or just ask like, is this what you like? Did you really mean it like that? Like in order, I might take it personal when it's like I was joking or like it wasn't personal at all. I was talking about something else. So just more asking those questions, like, did you really mean it that way? Definitely, learning that when we're in these type of relationships that it's all about mutual respect. And when you have that mutual respect, you're more apt to communicate calmly and collectively. And just like learning how to speak up with what I want. If we're like going back and forth on what we want to do that day or something, I'll say like, this isn't me saying that we have to do this, but like I'd prefer this option. But if we go the other way too, it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, so just saying like that way he knows what I want. And if he decides to make the change because I was just like, I don't feel like making a decision right now, then it's like, oh, it's okay. Like I know that he still heard me, he listened to me. It was just his choice to not do what I wanted to do, which I think it's fair, unless you're like super adamant, like, no, I really want to do that, Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I've grown over the past years. Or just how my communication style like started, changed, and now is finding that balance. Dan's communication style is assertive as well, but he is very calm and collected. Like he's very confident, very sure of himself, speaks his mind openly and clearly, but not in a negative or demeaning way. He's not very emotional, like he doesn't show his emotions a lot, but his feelings do get hurt. And so again, I need to be like open and hearing him when he's saying, or like if I get like body language where he's like looking down or feeling down, just kind of being more affectionate and instead of like, ugh, what's your problem? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's important to note, and I didn't do any, like, I didn't speak to this at all, like with my information or like homework or whatever. But I think it's important too to know that like communication isn't just like verbal, like it also
Mhm.
is body language. Like being able to read your partner's body language and understand kind of what they're feeling without them having to voice it, I think is also important too, which I'm kind of bummed thinking about it that we didn't touch on that.
I
But
know.
that is an important note.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is some communication room with that too, because if you notice, like if I'm noticing him just being like down while he's like, sitting at his computer for work or on the couch, like I can just tell, he's just not quiet. There's something off. I always ask, like, hey, is
Mhm.
everything okay? Did I do something that I'm not realizing? Something happened at work? Something else bother you? Did you get a phone call? You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
then you can get that conversation started versus just like, ugh, they're being sulky and I'm just going to go do my thing. So I found like when I just get more affectionate, like I, hug him a little harder or, give him like a kiss or I'll just, oh, hey, your water's low. Let me fill that up for you. Just those little things. I know too that helps him open up and just feel a little more at ease because he's like, oh, this is like a safe space. I can open up and show my emotions. Um, but yeah, so he's very respectful, doesn't really get upset, speaks with authority. He's definitely a natural leader. So that's kind of his communication styles. Where we our challenges this is like mostly when we first started dating and we had to get used to each other. um us both being assertive is great, but it also means that we are both stubborn and neither one of us want to back down. So when we did get into like little tiffs that should have been a little tiff, it ended up being a bigger argument just because we were so like, no, I'm right, no, I'm right. Like it just was that typical like neither one of us, bulls fighting basically. Neither of us wanting to back down because we are so sure of ourselves and like assertive. Um, I again kind of going back to what I learned growing up as a kid and everything in my environment, didn't really have any good examples of loving relationships. My parents bickered and fought 24/7. Um, I didn't realize that was showing a lack of respect. Um, I didn't know how to else to express my feelings, so that was kind of what I said earlier. Like I would have these like blow ups because I was just like, I wasn't taught any other way to communicate these feelings. Um, so that's, he would get angry because I was being ridiculous, things like that. It was like, fire and added a little gasoline and it exploded basically. Um, I was also super insecure and not confident in myself and took like all his silly jokes and just any like thing very personal as if he was like serious and like jabbing at me. And I would get overly sensitive and upset, and then which kind of started the cycle because I didn't know how to express myself. So what we've learned from all of that is a first and foremost, we realized we loved each other way too much for all these stupid fights to taint our relationship. Like it was just like, all right, not that one of us needs to back down, but we just need to nip things in the bud, and just be like, this is stupid. Let's just move on, get over this, kiss and make up kind of a deal. I started practicing mindfulness so that way I wouldn't react immediately. I would kind of sit back and assess and then say something if it legitimately did hurt me or hurt my feelings. Um, I'm I've learned that mutual respect, the confidence, how to converse about a problem, like I kind of said earlier. Instead of that initial reaction of just pain that I'm communicating, it's more like, okay, I don't know, he says something and it's just again, we just kind of have that conversation. Unlearning all that I knew, working out how I want to break the cycle and be in a loving relationship. I don't want to repeat my family's trends. He's definitely more sensitive to my emotions. I am an emotional person. So, he's more apt to just apologize if I say like, oh, that kind of hurt my feeling. He's just like, oh shit, I'm sorry. And then it just is dead right there, dead in the water. It doesn't go any further. So that's really good. And that's kind of how we can stop and nip things in the bud. We actively choose to just let little things go, understanding more and more about our personality traits and just little quirks and little things like that. Like, obviously, just the more you get to know each other and live together and all this kind of stuff, be in this relationship, you do learn a lot more. Like we said, you can read more body language. You feel more comfortable opening up and being more emotional and vulnerable. Also, just working through my depression and anxiety helped me think more clearly, realize how I was making mistakes in my communication and making that positive change. And we're both just far less stubborn. We hear each other out and then kind of go from there. So yeah, those are some challenges and learnings. I feel like I've been talking for a while, but I do have a few more little things of just kind of like why it works now, I like why this assertive an assertive communication works for us. I personally love someone that takes charge, and it also allows me to just tap into my feminine energy and kind of just be and let him, plan and let him make decisions. And because half the time I really don't care. That's not me being passive or anything. It's just like, is it really important where we go to dinner, that kind of stuff. Neither one of us walks all over the other. We're very respectful, we're very loving, we're understanding. And then we also have our own individual strengths and have learned how to work together as partners, trusting the other to do their part. So like, even if it's just like housework, like I don't like cleaning the showers. So I ask him like, oh, hey, I don't like doing this particular thing. Do you mind doing it? And I just like trust that he's going to do it in his own time. It doesn't have to be right when I think it should be done, that kind of stuff. Or just like when I ask, oh, can this little thing get done? Or if he asks me, oh, hey, can you hit the store? Like, we don't ever have to do anything right in that moment. It's just like, okay, yeah, you've asked me how to do something or to do something. I'm acknowledging it and executing it out, but also just like understanding we both work very differently. And so like how I do something is not how he's going to do something, and just letting that be okay and not having to like control in quotations for sure, their individuality. So yeah, that's my journey. It's been it was very eye-opening at the very beginning of our relationship, because I knew I kind of wasn't great at delivery, but it doesn't really come out until I was in a committed, deep romantic relationship. For some reason, it's like almost like all guard and everything's just out there. And so yeah, it was just like, oh, I had to clean out the ugly.
Well, I think it's hard too, because like when you grow up in a certain environment, like you like you said, you learn certain ways of communication and you think that it's normal. So
Exactly. Yeah.
when that's kind of the pattern that you continue on because you think that that's normal. And then when you get into a relationship that's actually healthy and that's actually good, it's very out of your comfort zone and unfamiliar that you almost think that something's wrong because it's not what you're used to, because like my parents, like they split when I was 6 months old, and I spent my whole life listening to both of them just talk crap about each other, how much they hated each other. And then when they were around each other, it just was very toxic environment, especially as a child where that's all growing up, So I completely understand, like when I think just in any relationship that you get into, it is a learning curve when you are communicating with people that you don't know their communication style yet, because you're so used to a certain style that anything other than that may seem abnormal.
Yeah.
Especially when it is a healthy, balanced environment where you are having these deep conversations. And yes, it turns into arguments, which arguments are normal. It's the screaming and yelling and the blaming and stuff that isn't normal, So there's like a lot of like confusion around that, I think. So it is important to kind of make that a point that like it is normal for relationships to have arguments. It's there's a healthy way to go about it, you know? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
it is, I think that's why we're put here though, is like to unlearn all these not bad habits, but also just learn to be better, right? And to do
Yeah.
better and like continue the what's it called? Like breaking the
Breaking
generation.
this, yeah, breaking the cycle, breaking that
Yeah. And
generational,
just,
yeah.
you know, and then like, cause I know when I have a kid, I don't want them to see me and my husband screaming at each other and talking negatively to each other because that's what I grew up around. So I want to break that and not put my child in that kind of environment. So, anyways,
Yeah.
just to add to kind of what you were talking to, but
Yeah, no, that's such a good point as far as like it feels off because you're like, and I this isn't my first serious relationship, but I was looking back at those two and I realized because I am assertive, I did kind of put on the pants in those relationships and I ruled the world, and so what I said went, and I was kind of bossy, and and that kind of sense of just like, oh, you don't agree with me, ugh, go away, that kind of like, I don't know, it's just like no. And so when we did fight, it was just like I took charge, and then they would back down, and I'd be like, all right, cool, I won, like
yeah,
moving on. I was
it's just a lack of awareness back then, whereas now you're
100%.
more aware, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, and then now I'm also dating someone that's not passive or passive, and
Yeah.
is like, hold on there, honey. You think I'm gonna back down? You're dating a man now. I wear the pants. So then, we just had to I almost had to learn how to be the woman in the relationship, and it's okay to just be, and like I said earlier, kind of tap into that feminine energy and let him take charge and
Yeah.
kick back on the couch and relax a little.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been a process, but a positive change. And I noticed the change in all my relationships, not just this one. You
Yeah.
work on it in one area and it definitely leaks over into everyday life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure does.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what about you? You want to tell us your story?
Yeah. So
What?
it took me a while to actually do this homework. Because as we all know, I've shared before, Darren and I just have completely different communication styles. Um, and then taking the quiz on marriage.com, I agreed with it, but then at the same time, I didn't fully agree with it because I feel like my communication style depends on the person that I'm communicating with as well as the situation. So I feel like it changes. But so when I was answering the questions, it was specific to like when I was reading them, I was specifically answering them to my husband type
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
So my communication style that I got was passive, which to me isn't really surprising. Again, I think it depends on the person that I'm speaking to and the situation. So the reason why I wasn't super surprised about this communication style was because I am a very timid and shy. I've always been timid and shy. I grew up in an environment where I was supposed to be seen, not heard. And I was constantly being spoken over because I had a very loud and assertive family. So it was always kind of like everybody spoke over each other. Nobody really had the respect to allow other people to speak. So it just, I was like, why bother speaking? It kind of was my mindset as a kid. I do prefer to avoid conflict and upset people. I don't like conflict. I don't like upsetting people. So this makes it very difficult to communicate my needs, as well as it makes me hesitant to set boundaries because I don't want to like upset anybody or offend them based on like what those boundaries might be. I do tend to keep thoughts to myself. I am very hesitant to share what is going on in my mind. Again, like as a child, it was, I was in an environment to be seen, not heard. So I don't speak up. I don't really like, even when I'm having a conversation with people, when I'm not like fully comfortable with them, like people might think I don't like to talk or I'm just very quiet, but it's just because like I keep my thoughts to myself because that's kind of just what I was used to as a kid. But this also makes me really think before I do speak because I sit there in my thoughts, right? Like, so
Yeah.
that's all I'm doing is thinking. So the issue with all of this, you know, with the whole indirect communication style, like it is very indirect. I tend to bottle up my thoughts until it explodes or boils from frustration. And this can lead to me being, which I'm already a sensitive and emotional person, but this leads to being overly emotional when it does boil over. And I get really intense too, because I've been holding it in. So, you know, I just want to get my point across. And I get worked up very, very easily. I also am because I'm an emotional person, I feel like my communication style, when I actually do open up to talk about it, I lead with emotion. And I'm the type of person where I prefer to talk through everything that I'm feeling and express those things very emotionally. And then the other thing to note is I need less transition time. So when I get into miscommunications or arguments, I have the desire to fix them immediately and talk it out more quickly, because I just don't like confrontation and I don't like feeling like there's an issue with the person.
Like looming over, it's just like still
Yeah,
there.
yeah. It like eats away at me when things are okay, or if like I leave a conversation and it's left badly, right? Like I don't like that. I like to leave things on good terms despite like whatever the situation might be. So that's kind of like my communication style and where it stemmed from. Again, I think it depends on the person that I'm speaking to and the situation, but this is more so, I mean, I guess, yeah, this is overall kind of my communication style. However, I do feel like I've grown a lot to where I've gotten, as I get older, I get into the mindset that I don't really care what people think. I mean, I do, but I don't, to where it's like, this is me and you're going to accept me for me. Or if you don't, then okay, bye. Like, I don't really need you in my life type. I don't know if that's a very good mindset to have, but at the same time, like the people who are going to stick around are going to stick around. But also, you know, being, and then being respectful and just, I think it is about respect and just being kind. I've learned, you know, because I do tend to let things fester. Sometimes like when I fly off the handle, I'll say things in not the best way, like similar to you, the delivery, you know, but I've learned to kind of just like try to tame my emotions back a little bit and just say it in a nice way. Like I still get worked up, but just tame it a little bit more. And then hubby's communication style, his result, which I didn't necessarily agree with. I do, but I don't. Again, I think it's very dependent on the situation, but he got passive as well. And I do agree with this in the sense that he does prefer to avoid conflict and he's very agreeable to appease others. He doesn't like the conflict either, and he gets along with everybody. So I've personally noticed that sometimes when he communicates, he kind of just is agreeable because he just wants to kind of like not
ruffle feathers.
Yes, exactly. He's not one to communicate frustrations or emotions at all. Like he would rather hold it in. So I guess that's where the passive would come. And then this leads to him bottling it up as well until it explodes. But the difference between him and I is he completely shuts down when he does explode. So he doesn't want to talk about it. He just shuts down and wants to be left alone. He's very direct. So he speaks what's on his mind, with no filter. He's brutally honest. Like he really, if anybody that's listening knows my husband, like he does not have a filter. And sometimes I think things can come off in a negative way, but it's not his intent. It's just that he doesn't take the time to think about what he's saying before he says it. And then he's more so a very logical person. Like he is not emotional at all when he communicates. Like he is a very logical and he's focused on the facts and the solutions. So he takes the emotion completely out of it because he's like, well, this is what, like, he literally like relies on the facts. And he's like, well, this is what the facts are. Like, this is the solution that we need to move forward. And he doesn't really take into account like how things might feel. And then he's the type, and this has kind of been, especially early on in our relationship, this is where we struggled a lot, was he needs more transition time. So he needs the space from fixing miscommunications. Like, you know, there's been some big blowouts that we've had, and he's walking out the door, and like, I'm the type where I need to fix it, and it just did not work. Like, it led the argument to be even bigger than what it was, and it took us a little bit of time to kind of figure out that like we're opposite. So you know, with that, we've learned like, if you need space, then communicate that you need that space, and that we'll talk about it in a little bit, and then walk out. Don't just grab your keys and walk out, like, because here I am thinking you're not coming back, you know what I mean? So very opposite in those. I think the biggest differences is just the whole emotional aspect, and the indirect and the direct situation, and then the less transition time. So again, though, like, I do think like he's not as passive. Like, I wouldn't say he's passive. Like, I think he would be like a mix of passive assertive, because he does speak his mind in certain situations, whereas, and maybe it's because we're in a relationship, so he's a little bit more comfortable, you know, communicating certain things, and there's certain people that he's comfortable communicating those things with. But that's kind of like what I've learned, or I guess that's kind of what I came up with when I sat down to do this. Cause it was, again, I was very hesitant to do this, because I was like, oh gosh, like, we already have different communication styles, and this is just going to be like discouraging almost, you know, but at the same time, it was very eye-opening. And then going into challenges and learnings over the years of our relationship, because we've had 12 years of challenges and learnings. So it's been over
some
a
years
decade.
On us.
I think the biggest struggle that we've had with our communication styles is we tend to avoid serious conversations to spare each other's feelings, especially in past fights. Like, we would just kind of sweep things under the rug because we didn't want it to turn into a big blowout. And in turn, this kind of festered into something bigger, and then it turned into an even bigger blowout. And then, you know, with our opposite styles of the way we communicate, in the sense of being emotional and the direct and indirect, it makes it challenging, honestly, for us to open up and be honest and vulnerable with each other. Because, again, I think whereas he doesn't really have a filter and he's super blunt about things, and I'm super sensitive and emotional, I take offense to it. So I think that's kind of where we struggle, because like, he's not scared, but he's very cautious about what he wants to talk about, because he doesn't want to upset me. And in turn, I have a hard time talking to him about certain things, because it's like, sometimes it's like, well, you're just too emotional and sensitive, you shouldn't have taken it that way. So that's kind of where we struggle a lot. I think the biggest thing we've had to learn is how to navigate the transition time with arguments. Again, like, at the beginning of our relationship, like, there would be times where like he just would kind of ghost me and not talk because he wasn't ready. And I took it as like, okay, we're over, like, we're not going to talk anymore. Whereas I want to fix things and I want to talk things out and be okay. I think that was kind of the biggest learning that we had to overcome with each other. I think understanding communication styles is extremely important, especially sitting down and doing this homework and kind of figuring out our different communication styles was definitely eye-opening. And I think it's important to know that like, it does take patience and a lot of work and a lot of kindness to be able to get through the obstacles of communicating, especially with your loved one, because you are so comfortable with them that sometimes I think we take advantage of them, especially when it comes to the communication of things.
Yeah, I agree.
I have learned that I need to remind myself that it's okay to trust and be open with my husband, because we love and accept each other for who we are. I get scared sometimes. Like, I find myself getting scared sometimes. Like, if I open up about certain things, like, he's going to judge me or think a certain way about me, you know, and I just need to remember that like, he married me for a reason. Like, he chooses me every day for a reason, and he does love and accept me for who I am. I mean, I probably drive him crazy half the time, more than half the time, but you know, he still accepts me.
That's our job as the girlfriend / wife.
And then again, I kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think the other thing that I've learned is just recognizing that it isn't personal because of his communication style. It's just the way he communicates. So not taking it personal and just knowing that even if we do have arguments, even if we do have certain blowouts or disagreements, like it doesn't mean he loves me any less. It's just we agree to disagree, or we work on it and figure out how to fix it. So it's kind of the challenges and learnings. And then I didn't really go into like how it works, but I guess just thinking off the top of my head of why our communication styles work is I think we give each other different perspectives. Like, I think he's learned, I would hope he's learned, I feel like he has, I think now he kind of has a perspective of what he does say, like what he does say or how he says certain things can affect people, even if that isn't his intention. Whereas I've learned like not to take things personal. I think the other thing is, especially with technology and text messages, him and I have like, because we used to obviously like when we would fight, we'd be distant, like we'd be apart. So we would like text through arguments. But again, we know that text messaging can be misconstrued or you can't really catch the tone. So when we do have arguments or disagreements, like, we choose not to text each other, like we choose to talk it out. And just, I think we've learned a lot of patience with each other and acceptance, which is why it works for us, because even when we do have a really, really hard time communicating, like, because we've been through so many different arguments and it has been over a decade of communication, like, I do feel like we could get through anything at this point, like no matter how big or what the argument is about, like I know we'll be able to get through it. Again, it's just with patience and acceptance and just understanding how each other communicate, like our styles. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah, I think a huge thing to take from all that is the intention. I think I mentioned it when I was talking about my stuff, but just like if you're not sure like how they intended it, or if you did take it personally, just like ask the question, like, did you intend that to mean this way? Like, and if you just say it just like I did, like very, conversational, it is, they're more apt to be like, oh shit, no, that's not what I meant at all. I meant this. And then you're like, oh, okay, silly me. But then it also like, because I have started doing that, because Dan does joke a lot, not like jabs at me at all. It's not like he's joking at me, but I was just, the insecurity is the lack of confidence that you take everything personal. It's a pain in the butt, but it's what happens.
Well, I think it's important to note too that like past relationships and the communication styles from past relationships plays a huge part in that, because I think one, I mean, I already know why I'm so sensitive is just because of my upbringing, but also like all of my past relationships, like I'm not even gonna call them men, I'm gonna call them boys, because I mean, granted, we were all really young as well, so they probably were dealing with their own shit and trying to just learn how to be a decent human. But all my past relationships, like the men that I was with or the boys that I were with, like they weren't nice. Like they would say really, really mean things, and they were very passive aggressive, I feel like, with their communication styles. So I thought that was normal. So when hubby would say certain things, like I just thought like, oh, it's just a similar situation. Whereas like he really didn't mean it the way that he said it. He just doesn't have that filter. Whereas I believe that the boys I was previously with, they were just not nice people. You know what I mean? So I think
100%,
our past relationships do play a huge factor in the way we've developed our communication style or the way that we view different communication styles.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our upbringing, our past relationships, friendships,
especially romantically, like that has such a huge impact on your future relationships. Like I hate to say it, but we all bring baggage when we're in a new relationship, and it's just about unlearning it, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really important. It's funny, the article I was going to go into is all about the women want to fix everything right away and the men tend to need space. So it's like how to work through that. But the whole time you're saying that, I was like, oh my God, I'm the exact same way.
I am like with anybody, like I do not like to like I hate when I leave a relationship or a friendship or any situation and the communication just ended on a negative note. Like, even if it's out of my control, like, even if
Mhm.
somebody else is the person who said something, like, I'm just thinking of a past relationship where things ended and it was like bad things were said, right? Things that you can't take back were said. And it's like, I have the desire to want to fix that, even though I'm not the one who ended it like that, or I have no reason to fix it because they're going to believe what they believe. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, it is a
Totally.
desire where it's like, no, but this is not okay.
Yeah. I'm the exact same way. I can definitely think of like a past, this is a friendship, but still just a past friendship that you're just like, it definitely wasn't anything I said. It was them just thinking not true, not the truth. And I'm still like, I still think about it. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, if you only saw my side.
Just gotta
But at the
let it
same
go, I
time, yeah,
guess.
exactly. That's the other thing, is just letting it go. I think that's super important too to remember, because you were like, oh, just not um letting the little things fester, or just like you're putting things under the rug. That's what you said.
Yeah.
Shoving things under the rug instead of letting them go. So that's like
Hmm.
something to remember, to learn too. Like, okay, you might in the moment be thinking that you're letting it go because you're like, okay, we're just gonna end this argument right here and now. But then if you're like 5 days later, you're like, oh, there he goes leaving the coffee mug on the counter again. We just talked about this. It's not letting it go. But yeah, it's all such a learning process. And honestly, it was like really kind of encouraging to see how much I've grown since the start of our relationship. I'm sure you have definitely seen a lot of growth over 12 years. I'm two
I
of
mean,
those.
it's definitely still like a learning in progress, it's especially like different stages of your life and different
Mhm.
situations that arise. Like, I feel like it's just you're constantly learning because like life happens
Yeah.
and you can't control, like, the whole losing my dad was a whole new learning curve of how to communicate, and so it's just
Yeah.
like you think that you get to a point where you're like, okay, we're good. We know how to communicate. And then life throws you like a curveball and you're like, okay, we haven't been through this situation
Yeah.
yet. And then it's like, again, you're learning how to communicate, right? But I mean, that's kind of been the common theme that we've talked about in a lot of our more recent episodes is just, wow, that thought just left my brain.
Like constant learning. We're always working on ourselves, maybe. That felt like the direction you were going.
Maybe. Dude,
Okay.
my brain literally just like blanked.
I kind of saw that. Like I saw your face just go like, yeah, you had a thought, and then whoop, magic eraser, it's gone.
Gone. Well then, anywho.
Well, it sounded like you were gonna say just like it's a constant life in itself, all the years, all the whole time. Things are always coming about, and it's a constant learning curve, and just life doesn't ever, not like let up, but it doesn't, you're never done learning.
Yeah, it's a constant work in process.
Hmm. Hmm. No matter how like solid or great you think the relationship or your communication is and everything, it's still something, like you said, something could be right around the corner that it's gonna like, oh man, that's a new one.
Well, here we go again.
Yeah, right. I
On
thought
the
we were
little
done.
learning bus.
Yeah, for reals. um I kind of had an article that I got. It was really interesting. Like I said, it was kind of about the differences of men and women, how the women are always wanting to be the pursuer while men tend to be the distancer. This article was actually on marriage.com, which I thought was kind of funny, by Dr. Kristen Darren or Davin. I can't read my handwriting, so it's one of the two. And it's called 8 Ways to Resolve the Differences in Male and Female Communication Patterns. Basically, like I said, the pattern was that the women are pursuers, the men are distancers, and this it basically is just an endless pattern that continues to go on in relationships until someone gets fed up and ends it.
Mhm.
It's typically the pursuer, is basically they want to talk things out, continuing to be persistent, needing to figure it out now despite any futility. And the distancer wants to flee the argument, needs space and cooling off period to focus and process. partners tend to get stuck into this communication dance and never resolve the pattern, and then arguments just tend to get worse. So some just little tidbits on how to resolve this pattern, so we don't have to do that little dance and can actually work on the communication and be more positive. The first thing is know your communication style. So check. And that's knowing your communication style with yourself and your partner. Create greater safety and trust between the two of you. Maybe ask if it's a good time to talk, if something's on your mind. Create a safe space for the other to be vulnerable. So if someone, let's say, like if Darren, or you ask Darren, like, hey, is this a good time to talk about something? And it could not even be something that you're upset about. It's just like, hey, I just need to get something on my chest. Him being open, present, really actively listening to you, that would be, your safe space and trust, and allowing you that time to be vulnerable. Recognize any patterns. So, this is something I had to realize. I had the pattern of just getting triggered because, I was insecure and not confident, and I took everything personal. So that was kind of you have to recognize those triggers while you're doing this. Recognize any other patterns in your spouse too. Like if you were consistently doing something and then they're at you about it, it's kind of like, oh, maybe we should visit this, because you're not wanting to talk about it, but this is clearly something you're not okay with. I thought this one was really good. Have a plan together. So, and this should be like before any argument. This is just kind of an agreement that you two have made. But it's like, agree to maybe take a 30-minute time out and just give yourself a little space and just some time to like cool down, gather your thoughts, and then go back into the conversation in a more conversal way versus just continuing to escalate the argument. By doing this, you both can decrease your tension and any anxiety and restart the issue in a more conversational manner. Also, alternative communication. So like if you guys are talking about something, maybe someone does need to like text or email about something that's on their mind just because they can't really get the words out.
Yeah, my mom was telling me a while ago when we were talking that her and my stepdad, like when they would argue or have an issue, they would write letters to each other. Yeah, and I thought that was like really clever.
Yeah, I love that. The guy literally was like text, email, write letters. It can springboard you both into a deeper in-person conversation, because you can kind of, now you're reading this thing that's from their heart, and you can actually be like, oh wow, okay, I didn't know any of that. Let's actually talk about this. I thought that was really smart. Have a we attitude. So, and it said we in quotations, but be on this journey together. Choose each other every day. You're in a partnership now. You're not just on your own. You shouldn't be fighting against each other. You should be working with each other for a common goal of happy relationship, happy life. I don't know, any financial goal, just any goals that you guys are putting together. Manage your own emotions. So this kind of just stems to, being mindful of what you're saying before you actually speak. Maybe sit back and be like, hey, am I taking that personal because it was mean, or am I taking that personal because I'm feeling insecure right now? Sitting back before you're just the initial like, you're such an asshole. And then last thing, this is super important, but stay on topic. Don't bring up any other unresolved issues that you guys have maybe talked about in the past. Whatever this argument or disagreement is, conversation is, whatever it is, stay in that conversation and recognize triggers again, and just decide to stay connected and resolve this one issue. Don't try and bring in all these other issues, because that just keeps escalating everything and just doesn't help resolve anything. So yeah,
makes sense.
Those are kind of just little tidbits. So next time you're chasing your man, if they're walking out the door, just take a beat, give them some space, maybe text them you love them, and we'll chat when you get back.
Mm.
But yeah, that's all I got for us.
I have a few tips for managing and improving communication skills. Just to add on to like what you had, but the first one is to set boundaries, which
Mhm.
I thought was extremely important. Speaking to somebody who has a hard time setting boundaries. But discuss personal boundaries prior to having serious conversations. So for example, like maybe telling them like, okay, we're not going to raise voices at each other,
Mhm.
etc. This helps to have like a plan in place to where you're not crossing those boundaries and
Yeah.
you're very aware of those boundaries prior to the serious conversation.
Yeah.
The next one is use I statements. So this allows you to take responsibility for your emotions, but this
Mhm.
is without placing blame. And
Mhm.
this leads to the other person not to feel criticized. Um, the third one is avoid the silent treatment. This can actually stall the progress in the relationship because then nothing gets resolved. And it does not offer any real or effective solutions long term.
Yeah.
And then, kind of to your point, have an exit strategy. So, this helps have a plan to create space to calm down respectfully, but then to be able to come back to the discussion with a level head. So, just a couple tips
Yeah.
that I came across that I thought were extremely helpful.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's super important to just, if they do need space, breathe it out. It's probably gonna be good for you too, because then you're like not you're gonna be able to sit with your thoughts and be like, "Oh, maybe I was being a little ridiculous," and I can come back to the conversation a little bit, yeah, like you said, more level-headed
Yeah.
and
Well, I think it's important to just communicate that you need the space because some people may not understand why you need space, or they'll jump to conclusions and assume that they know the reason why you need space. So I think
yeah.
just letting them know, hey, I need to calm down and I need to
Mhm.
take some space and we could come back to this conversation. I think that will make a huge difference for
Oh, yeah.
people like me who's
And
like,
me.
just talk to me. Like, there's nothing worse than not getting a response or just
Mhm.
getting ignored or yeah, just walking away. Like it just, especially for somebody who's anxious and overthinks things, like it just, plays scenarios in the brain that you don't really need to think. Like it's not that hard to just let them know, hey, like just need a minute.
Yeah, yeah. Just need to go get some fresh air.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's super
I'm
important.
not I'm not running down to Mexico and starting a whole
Yeah.
new life. Don't worry.
Right? Yeah, I mean, definitely I would be the person chasing them out the door, like, "Get back here.
Yeah.
I'm not done with you."
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's stop that dance.
Or you just need to have the last word. Because there's
Yeah.
people that need to have the last word
Mhm.
too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I mean, I hope that this was extremely helpful for you, lovelies.
mhm.
I would highly recommend if you are in a relationship, maybe sit down and figure out what your communication style is, your partner's communication style is.
Absolutely.
I think it's extremely helpful to just be aware of what's working and what's not, and just it doesn't hurt to improve communication because communication is key in every
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah,
So, yeah, take what you will with this and I hope that you've got some valuable information from it.
yeah, and you're not alone, you know? We're we're struggling right by you. I mean, definitely getting better. Improvements are made, but like you said, life can throw weird wrenches and we gotta work through that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So, um,
Well, I was gonna
I
say,
do
should we
have,
add on finish on a affirmation?
yeah, I have the affirmation here, and it is I express gratitude to the universe often, knowing that my thoughts are heard and appreciated. For
It's
today.
nice. That's appropriate.
Always is.
Yeah. Well, always, communicate to the universe if you're not
There
feeling heard.
you go. Full circle.
Yep. I love it. Well, lovelies, that's all we got for you today. So remember that you always have something to be grateful for. And
And
love
love
yourself
yourself truly.
truly.